We're going to talk about dimensioning and dimension styles. Dimension styles are very similar to the way text styles were set up and is a good place to begin. If you don't have your dimensioning toolbar open, you might choose to use it for this tutorial. I'll just leave it parked right here so that we can see it. You can access all the dimensioning features under the Draw, Dimensions, Linear, Radial, Ordinate, Angular, and so on. I find that the toolbar is really very convenient for this kind of thing. So let's park that right there. First, we need to start by defining a text style, which tells the program what font you want to use, how many decimal places, the text height, and its orientation to your dimension lines. Let me illustrate. I'm just going to choose the linear dimensioning command, which means that it will dimension only in the X and Y. Let me show you how that works. It will not dimension along or aligned with your beginning and end point selections. Show you. Let's say we wanted that dimension right there. Notice what it did. It chose to give you the horizontal dimension. You could have also, depending on where your cursor is placed, you'll notice now it's going to give me the vertical dimension, and if I'm between the points, it's going to give me the horizontal dimension. But it will only give you horizontal and vertical dimensions. That's the linear dimension option. But more importantly, because we're talking about dimension styles right at the moment, notice that the text in the arrows are too small. How can we correct that? Well, we go to Draw, Dimension Styles, and we're presented with a dialog with a number of tabs. And the dimension style name is very much the same as a text style name. This one here is standard. Let's create a new one, and we'll call it 120 Roman D. Create. So now we need to change the attributes of this dimension style to reflect what we'd like it to look like in the drawing. Well, you can feel free to start at the leftmost tab, Arrows. So the arrow size, in this case, is going to be dependent on the scale that you're drawing in. I find that for 1 inch equals 20, an arrowhead size of 2.5, and again, this is a personal preference. You could, through experimentation, discover what works best for you. And you can change the look of the arrowhead. I don't usually choose many of these other options. I leave them at the defaults, but you can feel free to find what works for you. And again, you can associate a different attribute to different dimension style names. Just try and make your dimension style name descriptive enough so that you'll know what is unique about that dimension style, much in the same way that you did when you created text styles. So the only thing that I want to do here is change my arrowhead size. If you're using Carlson on AutoCAD, your dialogues are going to look different, but the features or the attributes that we're changing here will be available to you in AutoCAD as well. Notice what happened. As soon as we changed this number, over here in this preview screen, the arrowhead size increased immediately. Let's change this number to 5 just so that we can make it dramatic. Now watch what's going to happen over here. I'm not going to hit enter, and then if you just pick the down arrow of one of these other attributes for the arrowhead, it will change the arrowhead preview. If you hit enter after entering a value here, it will close this dialog box, which you don't want it to do. But we don't want to change anything else just yet. So if you just select this down arrow, you'll notice that this screen will update. But let's bring it back to 2.5. And that's much more aesthetically pleasing. But you'll notice that the text style, or the text itself, is still too small. But we'll take things in order. We'll go to the Format tab, and I seldom, if ever, change anything here, with this one exception. The distance, or the space that surrounds the dimension text. By default, it usually is a pretty big number. Let's put in 1. And you'll notice in the preview, as we ratchet this number up, this space between the text and the dimension line actually increases. Again, you're going to have to find what is aesthetically pleasing to you. I find I personally prefer to have my dimension lines right up tight to the text with just a little bit of room around them. So I'm going to leave mine set at 0.1. We go to lines. I seldom change anything here, but you can control the offset from the object that you're dimensioning, how far your leaders are offset from your object. You can feel free to experiment with these settings. You can also select a different color for your dimension lines versus your extension lines. You can get very sophisticated. Again, I prefer to keep things simple, but feel free to experiment with some of these values until you find something that you prefer. Then we go to text. I don't want to use the standard text. I want to use a text that I created earlier called temp. And you'll notice it's a pretty dramatic text. It's got a slant to it, and I believe I even increased the width and that sort of thing. So you can clearly see it's a different text. Text height is going to be, for 1 inch equals 20, I find 1.5 or 1.6 works very well. Prefix and suffix, whatever you put here, if you put a prefix value in, whatever you put there is going to precede your text, and you'll notice it did. As a suffix, I like to add the feet symbol because I'm typically dimensioning in feet. And you'll notice it added that to my values. It may not be too easy to see, but we'll illustrate it in the drawing shortly. Text alignment. You can force horizontal dimensions. I prefer to not select these to force the text horizontal, so that if I'm dimensioning something as in the preview here, vertically, I like my dimensions to be aligned with the object surface that I'm dimensioning. I'm not going to change anything else here. Let's go to tolerance. If we were going to use a tolerance applied to our dimensions, meaning we show a dimension and we want to give a value that is allowed to vary from that dimension, we would give that or specify that here under the Tolerance tab. I don't find this typically used in the civil fields. We're not going to use any of these tolerance values.